Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Identity Talk for Educators Live, the show for the unsung heroes of education. I'm your host, Kwame Sarfo-Mensah, and if this is your first time tuning in to the show, we welcome you and we hope that you stay with us for future episodes. So tonight's episode is a very special one because we're focusing on fatherhood. And as a father to a young Black boy, this is something that resonates with me personally, as it does with so many people who will be tuning in to this show. So today's guest is a minister, a civic innovator, and the co-founder of Fathers Uplift Incorporated here in Boston. And his community engagement work has extended into his role as an Obama Foundation Fellow. And there are just so many accomplishments and so many things that this brother's doing in the community. But I want to bring him on to share some of this work with us. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in Mr. Charles Daniels Jr. to the show to talk with us about Fathers Uplift and all the great things he's doing. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I've
Yes.
been looking forward to this conversation for a minute, so I'm glad that we're finally able to have it.
Me too, man. Should be
Yeah.
fun.
Yes, sir. So on this show, as I tell my audience, we don't just focus on traditional educators in the classroom. We focus on people who just educate others on different levels. Now, in your case, you're an educator of fathers. You work hard to provide tools and strategies to help fathers, whether they're coming out of the prison system and reintegrating to society, or they just need some assistance with making a transition. Because I know as a father myself, a first time father, there were a lot of things I had to learn on the go, and I'm still learning to this day. So I know that's a huge part of the work that you do at Fathers Uplift. But I just like to start off by having you just share with us a little bit about yourself and what brought you into the space of educating fathers.
Well, man, prior to coming up to Boston and starting Fathers Uplift, I was a teacher. This is the first time I'm actually sharing that, but I
Oh, wow.
taught, yeah, man, taught for a couple of years at an alternative school in Georgia, in Clayton County, the county where I was raised. And what I learned from education, man, and also what I learned from personal experiences of not having a father, combined those two experiences, man, and just wanted to make a difference. But I can tell you, I bring a lot of my work as an educator, teacher, to the work of Fathers Uplift. So I kind of use an educator standpoint lens versus a therapist lens, man. But for the most part, what brought me to this work is just a personal experience, not necessarily having my father in my life and wondering where he was. And when I was older enough, I found out why he wasn't in my life. And I realized that I wasn't to blame because he was absent. I think a lot of kids connect their father's absence to their worth and who they are and them being the reason. And I realized that's not the case. So I said, what if my dad would have had someone to support him through some of those barriers? It would have made a difference for both of us. So Fathers Uplift was made in his honor to make sure that we can support dads that are physically absent, but are fighting to remain engaged. So that's kind of where it all came from, man. And we've been operating since 2010. And we're rolling strong. We're rolling strong.
No, I see.
Yeah,
And
man.
as someone who lives in Boston, I'm a lot more familiar with your work than some of the other folks who are watching us today.
Mhm.
And I have to say, what you all are doing, you and your wife, is just incredible. And it's really impacting a lot of people in our community. So I've seen you with Steve Harvey, you've been ABC. So this is work that's starting to get across to other parts of the nation and beyond. So when you started this movement, when you started Fathers Uplift, did you ever envision this type of impact that it would have, not just here in Boston, but beyond the city?
You know, man, Fathers Uplift was a calling. I'm a firm believer in God. And I can tell you that it wasn't anything that I waked up and planned. To tell you the truth, I wanted to be a lawyer. You know, that was my original goal. I kept taking the LSAT and I kept failing it. No law schools wanted me. I applied to over 20 law schools, got rejected to all of them. So God called me to this work. So I said, you know what, Lord, what am I going to do? So I ended up getting accepted to Simmons University, and I went to the only school that accepted me. And that's where I studied clinical social work, man. The rest is history. But I can tell you, it's a true calling because this isn't something that I dreamed of doing. You know, if you would have asked me, Charles, a couple of years ago, Charles, you're going to be a therapist or you're going to be serving fathers, I would have called you a liar because that wasn't my goal, man. I wanted to be a corporate lawyer somewhere in the office, making money and, you know, fighting businesses. That was my long-term goal. But, you know, God had other plans. And now my wife and I are here, man. It wasn't something that we planned, but it is something that I'm happy. I think, like, according to my religion, they always say God's plan is better than your own plan. So I just don't see me being in any other space, but working with fathers and families, man. I'm so happy that I failed all of those law school exams and got rejected to all of those law schools because now I'm here, man. So, yeah, to the question, it was never something I envisioned. God just put me here, man.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you've gone from helping out fathers to becoming a father. So
Hmm.
you're a father just like I am, and you have a son. I have a son. So what has that transition been for you
Hmm.
personally? How's that been for you?
You know, becoming a father for me really put things into perspective. I can tell you, a lot of folks say, well, Charles, how do you, prior to becoming a father, the main pushback from funders and from other individuals who are in the work was that, Charles, you're not a father. How can you support other fathers?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a question that another father asked me when I first started to work. And that's when I really learned how to be a student because I told him, I don't know anything about fatherhood, but you can teach me everything that I need to know. And he did. And from that point, man, I learned so much about being a servant, but also allowing the people to teach you because you can't serve anyone if you're not teachable and you're not humble. So that was one lesson. And from that perspective, man, I knew that when I became a father, I would be prepared. But I can tell you that when my son was born, my expectation of saying, hey, Charles, you have Fathers Uplift already, you're going to be a great father. That wasn't the case, man. I was scared as hell. You know, my wife and
Mm-hmm.
I almost divorced because the pregnancy stage was very difficult for us. Um, I thought I had it all. I thought I had it planned. I thought I knew what I was doing. But when I had my own child, I realized I didn't know anything about fatherhood. I knew how to support fathers, but I didn't know how to be a father. So through trial and error, I had to learn, man. And I would also say that my son has taught me more about fatherhood than I've ever learned. He taught me that, hey, you know, it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to allow your son, your children to teach you. You know, fathers is also about being the teacher, but sometimes you got to be the student with your kids. So being, you know, knocked down to my knees by becoming a father and really allowing that process to teach me, man, and shape me has been a blessing. My son is now 6 years old. I mean, 5 year old. He'll be 6 in October. And I got a daughter on the way, man. So I'm thrilled. You know,
Oh,
this.
nice.
Thank you, brother. We're thrilled. We're
Congratulations.
excited. Thank you, man. Looking forward to her coming in September.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Well, I can speak for myself. When I became a father 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I knew I was nervous, I was
Mhm.
scared, but I was excited at the same time because just speaking from personal experience, I don't have the great relationship with my own father. And it just goes back to, him not being there when I needed him and just not being there emotionally. Because you could be there physically, but if you're not there emotionally, your physical presence doesn't really matter a whole lot.
Yeah.
And this is something that personally I've had to carry into adulthood. And I've seen it have an impact on the way that I interact with the world, in the way that I interact with my own son, in the way that I interact with my wife and other loved ones. And so when I think about my role as a father, I'm just trying not to repeat some of the same mistakes that my own father made. But what's ironic is I end up doing some of those same mistakes as my own father because his DNA is in me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I can't ignore. I can't avoid that. It's in my blood. It's in my body. So when you think about your own father and now think about your role as a father yourself,
Mm-hmm.
do you think about moments or have you had moments where you just told myself, man, like I did just exactly what he did. Like the same things I said I wouldn't do, like I'm doing it.
Yeah, man. I could tell you that when my son was born, I really began to have empathy for my own father, right?
Mm,
And it started with my mother bringing my baby book to Boston when my son was getting ready to be born. And in that book, I found a picture of my father holding me for the first time. I'd never seen that picture in my life. And at that moment, I also realized that, hey, you know what, Charles? Your dad loved you. He ended up being absent due to his imperfections, also him being hard on himself. He didn't know how to re engage. I could tell you why my father had been absent. I was born as a result of a marital affair. So my
mm,
father had his wife, and my mother was the outside woman. And I was a kid that was born as a result of their love. So when you think about how difficult it is to re-engage,
mm.
those were the experiences that my own father had been dealing with, and he's still dealing with still this day. So when I think about mistakes and me thinking about my father's experience, I tell people all the time, I am no different from my father. I can end up becoming an absent father just like this. Right. So I never take on the position that I'm holier than thou or that I cannot be absent because I know that I am capable of being floored by my own mistakes. I'm capable of ended up permanently being damaged by insensitivities and not necessarily embracing my own scars and learning from those.
Yes.
I'm just like any other man, imperfect and flawed. And flawed. And with that being said, is that as a part of that recognition, that realization, it really has put me in a position to embrace anything that happens, and at the same time be mindful of the situations that I put myself in. There's certain things I can't do, certain places that I can't go because I know my triggers. I know the type of person I am. So my father has taught me that. He's taught me that I'm no different from him. And he's also taught me that we're all, susceptible to making mistakes, man, and becoming absent. So we should never become holier than thou. So that's what I learned from his absence. And I also can tell you, man, that it really has made me a better person.
No, absolutely. I think humility is the most important trait that comes out of becoming a father
Yeah,
because you realize that you're not fallible. You realize that you are prone to making errors and you're not exempt from responsibility. You have to, take care of your own. You got to take care of your child. Got to be there at their beck and call.
absolutely.
Even when you're too tired to do it, you got to do it. Muster up the energy to do it. So it's a challenge, but it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
It's definitely a labor of love. There are a lot more positive moments than there are negative ones for sure.
Mhm.
But let's talk more about Fathers Uplift because you all provide a wealth of services to fathers. So if you could just share a little bit about the mission of Fathers Uplift and then some of the specific programs and initiatives that Father Uplift offers to fathers who are trying to engage with their families.
Absolutely, man. So Fathers Uplift, we're the country's first outpatient mental health clinic and substance abuse treatment facility for fathers and their families. And our whole goal is to support dads with overcoming any barrier that can prevent them from being in their kids' lives. We hold the assumption that all fathers want to be engaged. When they're not engaged, they have ran into an experience that has made it extremely difficult for them to be there, whether it's emotional or an external situation, such as substance abuse, homelessness, whatever the case may be. When you think about what we do, man, we provide therapy. We also provide mentoring and coaching. Um, we have a variety of other programs where we support dads returning home from prison, and also provide training to social work students and psychology students so they can be prepared to work with communities of color, specifically men. We do so much, right? But I can tell you, man, that at the foundation of the work is a labor of love, and it's headed by two individuals who are married, my wife and I, who love men of color, love families of color, and who understand it because we are a family of color.
Yes.
And we're both therapists, and we both made a vow to keep fathers positively engaged in their kids' lives. My wife had her father, and what inspired her to co-found this organization with me was that while she was in Haiti, she's from Haiti.
Mhm.
She moved over here at the age of 10 years old from Haiti to Florida to live with her father. But while in Haiti, from when she was younger up until the age of 10 years old, her father made her feel as if she was the most important child in his life, all the way from the United States of America. So she realized that fathers can be emotionally engaged and positively engaged in their kids' lives when they are outside the household, just like her father was. She knew that her father loved her, and you couldn't tell her anything different. And me, on the other hand, my father wasn't there, and I understood the emotional toll that it can take on a child when they don't have their kids engaged. I mean, you think about me being growing up in a house without my father, man. I went through every emotional struggle that you possibly can think about: depression, severe anxiety issues, man, substance use, even a suicidal attempt, man. So when
Oh,
you think about
wow.
the mental health that's connected to not having a father, the research suggests it, but I also lived what the research says. Kids growing up in households without their fathers are more likely to engage in substance use, early pregnancies, right? I mean, incarceration, whatever the case may be. I mean, the effects goes down the line. The research supports it, and we know that fathers matter. So we came together to try to give fathers an opportunity, man, to give them the support to stay in their kids' lives. So no child has to feel the way that I felt. And so every child can feel the way that my wife felt, that her
Yeah,
dad loves them. Because dads do love their kids, man, even when they're not physically engaged.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned this because as a teacher, I come across so many brothers, so many young brothers
Hmm.
who come from homes where they don't have a father in the household and they end up being the men of the house.
Yeah.
They end up becoming adults at a much earlier age than they'd like because their mothers need them to be that person to
Hmm.
fill that void in the family. And I cannot tell you the number of brothers I've taught over the years who internalize the trauma. They don't want to talk about the experience of not having a father around, but it manifests itself in so many different ways, whether it's in the form of a suspension, whether it's in the form of an outburst, an emotional
Hmm.
outburst that happens in the middle of a class, or whether it's just their behavior overall, like the way they just treat people in general. We look at the surface level of those issues, but we don't really look then to find out what's causing it. We don't look at the diagnosis of these issues, the source of it. And I think that's where a lot of our schools fail. We don't take the time to talk to our kids, but rather we come up with solutions or certain practices that we feel will remedy the issue, but they actually end up being band-aids to it.
Yeah.
Emotional band-aids or physical band-aids, what have you. So as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about just what's going on in our country right now
Hmm.
with all these black men being killed at the hands of cops. And you think about brothers like George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and countless other black men. A lot of these men were fathers too, and they were devoted fathers to their families. Now, the media is going to put out a certain narrative about those brothers, but the people who knew them the best, their loved ones, family members, close friends, they'll tell you a totally different story about them. And I just want to know from you, how has these recent deaths impacted you as a father?
Mm. I was on a recent interview on NPR, WBUR recently about, raising a black boy during the era of Black Lives Matter that's currently online. And yeah, I haven't handled it very well. I can tell you, man, typically what a lot of brothers say that, someone say, hey, are you okay? During this situation, they say I'm okay, just not to have dialogue about what's currently going on.
Right.
But I haven't been okay. I haven't been okay, man. Matter of fact, I slumped into a severe depression. I think a lot of brothers are feeling helpless during this stage. And this isn't anything new, man. But when you are reminded of, the effects of being a black person and how society views you, and it's even worse if you have kids, right? You become extremely concerned. But one thing that I realized about depression is that depression is natural, anxiety is natural, to be disappointed is natural. Matter of fact, if you're not disappointed or you're not feeling sad during this particular time, there's something wrong with you.
Mm.
So we have to really just kind of be honest with those emotions that we're feeling. But for me in particular, I haven't dealt with it that easy, man. And I'm also going to tell you that I've been extremely concerned for my own son, who's only 5 years old, and extremely concerned about my daughter, who's not even here yet. So when you think about what do we need to do as a country, we need to do a lot. But what do we need to do as black men and as a community of black families? We need to make sure that we continue to tell our kids that they're extremely important, so we can have something that's strong enough to compete against
Mm.
this overall narrative that suggests that they're not important because they're black. So every night we have to tell our kids, hey man, you're worthy. You are a handsome, a beautiful black person. We love you. We care about you. There's nothing that you can't do. I have at least 50 affirmations I give my son a day because I want to make sure that when he gets older and he leaves my household, he knows how important he is despite the foolishness in this world. And we're both going to believe that he's worthy. So I think, right now in our own households, man, we just got to create a culture of worthiness in our own household, man. But yeah, I struggled with that over these last couple of days.
Uh, it's been more than days for myself and my wife. I mean, it's
Yeah.
been months because everywhere you turn, they're talking about it in some
Hmm.
shape or form, whether it's a summit about it, whether it's a news report about it, an article about it. You go on social media, you look in your news feed, the first 5 posts are about it. It's practically unavoidable. And that's what causes the trauma to perpetuate within us
Hmm.
because it's around us now. And now you have folks who want to have dialogue about it after years of ignoring the issue altogether. Now they want to have dialogue about this issue. And what they don't realize is as they're having these deep academic conversations about this serves as trauma for us. Because we've been talking about this. I've been talking about this for as long as I've been on this earth.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 37 years old. This is something that's been a part of my life from day one, from the time I came out the womb. So to have to talk about it, it's necessary, but also it's painful at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I think some folks just need to be aware of when they do bring it up. We understand that it needs to be something that has to be discussed, and we need to inform others, particularly non people of color, about this. But then at the same time, we have to work through our own trauma as we're trying to educate folks about how it traumatizes us.
Hmm.
And that's the part that's difficult more than anything.
Yeah, extremely
Um,
difficult, man. Extremely difficult. And like I said, a lot of people are talking about it, but my main thing is, man, if you're going to talk about it, be prepared to produce some tangible solutions. If you're a funder and you're talking about it, be prepared to pay some money, right, to some organizations that are doing the work, right? If you are a school administrator and you're talking about it, be prepared to change some of your systems that are mislabeling and misdiagnosing black men at alarming rates, that are
yes,
suspending black men, black boys for no apparent reason, right? Who are not necessarily strategically thinking about alternatives. If you're going to talk about it, be prepared to render some tangible solutions that's going to make a difference. Don't just talk about it, right? Because right now we don't need empty conversations that are going to die down when this whole Black Lives Matter calm down. We need tangible solutions and policies. Don't just hire a diversity officer and say, "Hey, I've done my job." Don't just
Right.
create a diversity fund and say, hey, I gave away a couple $1,000,000. I've done my job. No, you got to do more than that. So,
No, absolutely.
that's kind of my perspective on that, man.
Absolutely. And I feel like there's been an influx of diversity and inclusion consultants who have come
Yeah.
out of this period.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, where have y'all been? I've never seen you before. Like I go on
Yeah.
Twitter, you look at the handles and the little descriptions under there.
Yeah.
DEI consultant,
Hmm.
diversity, inclusion, and equity expert. And I'm thinking to myself, are you sure about that? Are you
Yeah.
sure? Because I have not seen you in these streets until now.
Hmm.
So yeah, and I think we do need to, but seriously, I think we do have to do more than
Yeah.
just talk about it because we've talked about it for a long time, especially Black folks. We talked
Hmm.
about this for a long time. Now let's do something about it. And you're doing something about it because you were and still are, I think, an Obama Foundation fellow,
Hmm.
if I'm correct. And I mean, being around the Obamas, that has to be surreal. I mean, to have met them and to be in that space with them. So I just want you to share with us what that experience has been for you personally and what kind of work have you been able to do within your role as an Obama Foundation fellow.
I think being Obama fellow, man, is all about community, and it's also about receiving leadership skills as well as advice, man, and support from President Obama's staff at the Obama Foundation, which is headed by the CEO of the Obama Foundation, who I love dearly, Mr. David Simons.
Mhm.
Great guy overall. His staff, Brittany, a whole 9 yards. Betsy, love them, man. They really support us and they really love us, and they really make sure that we have everything that we need to continue to propel our missions forward. So it's just like being a part of a great group of individuals, man, that wants to make a difference all over the world. There's 19 other fellows from different countries, from different parts of the United States of America, who are doing great work as well in their respective places, man. And I love them like they're my brothers and sisters. The experience has definitely been rewarding. I never saw myself as a Obama fellow. I also never see myself a part of a community of individuals that I really love and care about, like Joseph Conkle, my dear friend who's doing a lot of work in Native American communities around building buildings and things like that, man. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful individuals out there, man, who's a part of the Obama Fellowship family. Um, Being under the guidance of the Obama Foundation staff and learning from Mrs. Obama and President Obama is a dream come true. I've always admired them, like millions of other people, since I was a child, but I never imagined being able to have a conversation with them, ask a question, even have my son meet President Obama and
Wow.
hear from President Obama.
Yeah.
I've never imagined that. You think about my ancestors; they've never stood in a room with a president of the United States of America. They never met a first lady of the United States of America, right? My great great grandmother was a slave, right? I also
Mhm.
have Native Americans in my family, right? So when you're in these rooms, you have to realize whose shoulders you're standing on. And I stand on the shoulders of many wonderful individuals who worked hard for me to get to this point. My mom, my wife, my grandparents. But at the same time, man, it's been a rewarding experience. And I just make sure that every room that I'm in, I bring them with me. Those people who cleared the way for me to sit there, man. But I can tell you, I never trade experience in for nothing in the world. Something I'm always going to remember.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as we're winding down, I want to give people a chance to see the Fathers Uplift website.
Mhm.
So as I pull it up, if you could just share with us just some of the different programs to direct folks so that if they do want to learn more about Fathers Uplift, they know where to go.
Awesome. So if you click on the programs piece,
Mm-hmm.
that's just a list of our services from if you are an intern at a graduate school and you're looking for an internship and want to learn how to serve Black men and families, that's where you go to know how to apply and to understand our selection process. Family group is the therapy component of our organization. If you need a clinician, someone to talk to, we're there for you. All of our clinicians look like the population that we serve, which is primarily Black.
Okay.
Right, 64% of our population are Black families. Right.
Right.
We also have services for children that are growing up in households without their fathers, which is through our youth enrichment program, where they're connected to summer enrichment resources, as well as mentoring throughout the year and therapy as well. Our coaching services, peer-to-peer mentorship for dads that are in need of advocacy support, whether you're dealing with child support, child welfare issues, need support with modification, we got you, right? Trainings, we do provide trainings. So if you have an agency looking to learn how you could increase your efficiency serving Black men and boys, click on that training link, man, and we can tailor a training towards you, or you can select one of the trainings that we already offer. And those are our services, man. In terms of individuals that want to get involved from a volunteer standpoint, we have an initiative under Get Involved called Bags for Dads, where you can pack a bag, donate bags of hygiene products for our fathers returning home from jail, as well as for dads that have been home for a while but are in need of ongoing support. So that's where you can learn a little bit more about that initiative. That initiative was created by my wife, and it's really doing great work during COVID-19. So that's pretty much everything that we do, man, in a nutshell.
Awesome. And the most important thing, especially now, we need to support organizations like Fathers Uplift. So if you're willing to donate, whether it's $1, $40, $12, whatever you're able to give, you can do that on the website as well. So I'm just showing you all where you can go to make the donations, because we have to support our nonprofit organizations. Yes, they are nonprofit, but at the same time, in order for organizations like Fathers Uplift to do the work that they do, they need the funding in order to keep these programs afloat. So let's make sure that we continue to support monetarily as much as we can. So I just want to point that out. And we're about to close the show. Now, in order for people to stay connected with you outside of the website, how can they connect with you on social media, Charles?
Yeah, man. So we have several pages, but you can follow I post a lot about the organization. That's pretty much all that I post about and my family. But you can follow me on Facebook at Charles Clayton Daniels Jr. You also can follow me on Twitter. I don't use it that much, and Instagram, but you can still follow me, Dr. Daniels Jr., Twitter and Instagram. Fathers Uplift is just Fathers Uplift on all social media platforms. You'll be able to find us. You also can follow me on LinkedIn, Charles Clayton Daniels Jr., with the degrees that I have. It's crazy. I had to put, I work hard for those degrees, right?
Hey, yeah, you gotta put that out. They gotta put some respect on those degrees now. Come on.
That's it. Put some respect on it. Yeah, man. Those are my platforms. So feel free to stay in touch.
All right. Well, Mr. Charles Daniels, thank you so much for coming on the show and blessing us with your wisdom. And we hope that you continue to move forward with all the great work you're doing through Fathers Uplift, you and your wife.
Thank you, brother. We appreciate you.
All right. All right. You have a good night, sir.
You too, man. Take care.
All right. So there you have it, people. Another episode of Identity Talk for Educators Live. And before we sign off, I wanted to make a few announcements. First announcement is our Identity Talk for the Culture Instagram conversation series. And this is a conversation series for any new or aspiring teachers of color. It's a collaboration between myself and my good friend Shauna Brown, who's the founder of Teach for the Culture. We had our first session last Thursday where we talked about a lot of pertinent issues, from microaggressions in the classroom to job interviewing skills for any aspiring educators who are trying to get into the school system. So if you want to be a part of those conversations, make sure you tune in to Instagram on Thursdays at 7 p.m. for the month of July and chat with Shauna and I. We love to have you join the conversation and share your thoughts on what's going on in your respective school districts. So make sure you spread the word to any new or future teachers of color you know, whether they're Black, Latinx, Indigenous, Native, or Asian. We're trying to bring them all on. So if you know anybody who fits that description, let them know about Identity Talk for the Culture. We have 4 more going on this month before we close it down. Let's try to get as many people as possible. And for the next announcement, it's a really special one, and this is an exclusive. So Identity Talk Consulting has been creating a lot of new programs for the upcoming fall. And one of the programs that I'd like to introduce tonight is called SPELL, the Self-Publishing Educators Learning Lab. And this is a new program for any educators who are interested in learning how to self-publish their own book. And the reason why I started this is because I've had so many friends, so many people reach out to me, asking me about how to go through the self-publishing process. You know, Kwame, how did you publish your book? How can I be a part of this process? How can I get my writing going? And so many other questions. So I just thought it was time to create a course built around this concept. So if anybody's interested in being a part of the course, make sure you reach out to me. You can send me a DM or comment below, or you can email me at identitalk4educators@gmail.com to share your interest about the program. And we're going to be doing this very soon. So it's coming within the next month, month and a half, and you'll definitely see more information about it as we move forward. And finally, if there's anybody who wants to be a guest on the show, feel free to email me at identitalk4educators@gmail.com. We're always looking for any people who are educators in the community, not just the teachers who are in the classrooms. We're looking for people like Charles who are educating fathers, people who are educating young people in the community, whether it's through coaching, whether it's through mentorship, whatever your role is. We want to make sure you come onto the show to share your story, and we're able to put the spotlight on you. So if you know anybody who fits that description of a community hero, someone who's imparting wisdom and knowledge to the young people and even others in the community, make sure they have a place in the show. Share the email, let them know that we want to put this spotlight on them. And that's all I have for this episode. So, oh yeah, one more thing. If you love what you saw tonight, please be sure you subscribe to Identity Talk for Educators Live on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all other streaming platforms. Please do so. Just check out the ticker below. And that's it. I'm your host, Kwame Sarfo-Mensah. And as always, I wish you a good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. And we're going to do this again another time. Peace out, everybody.